This is Mary Collins with Life Hacks Media on Radio X, and today I have the amazing pleasure of actually having Romain Charles, our Mars mission participant from the European Space Agency. Hi, Romain, how are you?
Hello, I'm good, thank you.
So, before I start shooting questions about isolation hacks, because that's, I guess, what we're all going through right now with this COVID-19 pandemic, of how do we not, go crazy in confinement. I'm going to just give a little bit of an introduction of who you are and what you do.
Thank you.
So, Romain Charles is a French engineer who graduated from the French Institute of Advanced Mechanics and is currently working at MDES Meds, the French Institute for Space Medicine and Physiology. Between June 2010 and November 2011, he participated in the European Space Agency's test in a Russian experiment program called Mars 500, which aimed at simulating an on-Earth round trip of a crew to the planet Mars. This experiment proposed to challenge the physical and mental capacities of the human being to see if they could resist the conditions of confinement and isolation for a trip to Mars. And the case study took 520 days.
That's correct. I think it's important to say that it was a scientific experiment and it was trying to answer a big question. And this question, scientific question, was, is man psychologically and physiologically able to endure the confinement of a trip to Mars? So in other words, we spent 520 days, so 1.5 years in the mock-up of a spaceship with 5 other guys. And the big question was, can we do this mission without killing each other and still working efficiently together until the end? And spoiler alert, the answer to this big question is yes, because we're 6 when we entered in 2010, and we're still 6 when we exited in 2011, and still working efficiently together. So it was a good opportunity and a good chance for me.
So exciting, so absolutely motivational, and especially in times like this when people are maybe really having a chance to sit back and think about their lives and where they're going with their lives and what's important. So I think this is a great start to the preparation process of maybe not going for these people into Mars, but definitely reconfiguring their lives, their goals, their motivations, and surviving their time in isolation. Mm-hmm. So what were some of the preparation processes like exams, tests, physical and mental endurance? What kind of stuff did you have to go through?
So for the selection organized by the European Space Agency, we had different steps. The first one was a call for candidates. So it was a website and we had to answer a lot of questions. Second one was a phone interview, like for a job. The third one was a psychological interview. So it was starting to get a bit harder with a panel of 8 people shooting questions in all directions and answering a lot of questionnaires. The fourth step was a medical check, which lasted for a week and a half. So everything was tested.
Okay.
Just to make sure that nothing would evolve during that year and a half, to make sure that we're healthy enough so that they could put us and lock the door behind and be kind of confident that it would be okay health-wise. Mm-hmm. And the last one was the training. The training lasted for 3 months. And when we started the training, we were still 11 candidates, knowing that roughly 3 weeks, 1 month before entering the modules, the persons in charge of the project extracted from those 11 candidates the final crew of 6 people. So during this whole selection process, it was mainly trying to find first personalities that would be able to endure this confinement.
Right.
And then during the final part with this training, they were looking at interactions, because it's not really a personality type that makes it. It's more a group that can go through ups and downs and until the end of the mission. So that, I think, is the way they selected us. Mm-hmm. And on top of that, during that training, it was mainly focusing on the science. Our job inside was to do experiments. And during the training, we had scientists from all around the world coming and teaching us their experiments. but we still had some, a few team bonding experiments. No, it's more
like exercises,
exercises to get to know each other and to at least know a little bit of the guys with whom we would spend a year and a half in confinement.
Okay, and from that experiment, did you find that you did have something in common with the people they chose, or were there just like work motivation in common, personality or goal-oriented common features?
So we were inside the modules, we were from very different countries. We had 3 Russians, 1 Chinese, 1 Italo-Colombian, and 1 French. And even our motivations were not always the same, but we wanted this mission to be successful, all of us. That was the common motivation. I would say that I could find some aspects in those guys that I could relate to. So we had a few things that helped us to go through, and one of them was to, I think, to be tolerant enough so that we could accept that the others were not like us, that they were not thinking like us, and open-minded enough so that when somebody would tell us a remark saying like, no, stop it, it's just bothering me, we would take it and say, and try to understand, like, where does it come from? I learned after the experiment, I was trying to see why were we selected. 2 of the other things that they were looking for is creative people, because when you're confined, you have some work to do, usually 8 hours, you have some sleep, usually 8 hours, and then you have 8 hours to fill. And during that mission, it was not always easy to find activities. So creative people can imagine new things or find ways of coping with the confinement.
Okay. Well, that's something that's actually the very first hacks, for families who, as adults, we sometimes forget what it's like to be teenagers or definitely toddlers. And I think that during this time, people should realize that creativity, that way of thinking outside of the box of how can I help entertain that person, or how can I kind of take the stress off myself, and personality wise, that ability to say empathetically, well, let me consider what their feelings might be or their situation. Those who are cramped up with teenagers who are wanting to play Xbox nonstop or video games. And you think, what would I have done when I was a teenager? What would I have done when I was a 5-year-old? I want to run around and,
I think it's even, and it's more, I'm not working in this field, but it feels like it was easier for us because we were so different that we're expecting the others to think differently from us. But from a family perspective, you spend so much time with them so that you, in a way, you imagine that they think the same way as you do. But that's usually not the case. And it's hard to take that distance, to be able to talk and communicate efficiently, to diffuse any tension or any conflict that may arise. We're expecting the others to think differently from us, but from a family perspective, you spend so much time with them so that you, in a way, you imagine that they think the same way as you do. But that's usually not the case. And it's hard to take that distance, to be able to talk and communicate efficiently, to diffuse any tension or any conflict that may arise.
So would you say, Romain, that your first hacks would be, no matter how different the personalities are, what would you say are the best ways to work through a small, isolated or a tight situation with people who are totally different personalities or different age groups? What would be your top hacks for figuring how to work with them?
Well, the top hacks would be to communicate. It's really important to tell people why or what, and give them the information to explain why you did that this way, or why it shouldn't be done that way, to give them something, like just not push them away, don't flee in some other corner, just try to reach out. Easier said than done, that I know, I agree with that. But at least for us in Master 100, it helped, it worked. And that was, I guess, one of the big disappointment of the psychologists looking at us inside the modules is that we didn't have any conflict for a year and a half. We had some tensions, but we could always talk them through, understand each other, and find compromises. And that worked for a year and a half, yes.
And that's what we're going to get onto next, is perhaps the conflict was like dissipated or didn't happen because you had a schedule, right?
Yes.
Right.
Well, yeah, it's important. It's important, definitely, yes.
Okay. Romain, Charles, thank you for being on Life Hacks, and we will be right back with part 2. Thank you.